Everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. I'm Dr. Smalls, Director of Professional Development for the Maryland Department of Health's Developmental Disabilities Administration. We welcome you to today's Waiver Amendment 2025 Waiver Changes and New webinar. If you would like to use closed captioning so that you can read what is being said, click this button. Sometimes the transcription is not exact, but it's pretty close. All attendees are currently in listen-only mode, and your mics and cameras are turned off. Today's presentation is available in the handout section. Click where you see the paperclip to download the presentation and other handouts. If you have a question that you'd like us to read and answer, click here where you see the question mark to add your question. If you would like to ask your question aloud during our comment section, please click this button to raise your hand. We will invite you to unmute during our public comment section of today's presentation. Before beginning our meeting, we also want to ensure civility for all of our meetings. The free expression of diverse viewpoints is a fundamental value of our group. This freedom carries the responsibility to engage respectfully, which means treating one another with dignity and with respect and good faith. Uncivil behavior, disruptive conduct, abusive language, threats, or harassment will not be tolerated and may lead to being excused from the meeting. Thank you for helping to keep this productive and comfortable for everyone. And now I'd like to introduce Rhonda Workman, Director of Federal Programs, to begin today's webinar. Good afternoon, Rhonda.
Good afternoon, Dr. Smalls. Thank you so much. And good afternoon to everyone joining us today. My name is Rhonda Workman, and on behalf of the Developmental Disabilities Administration, I want to welcome you to the DDA's Webinar Amendment 2025 Waiver Changes and New webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to share information in plain language about the DDA-operated Medicaid Waiver Amendment. The DDA will also be offering more webinars to explain upcoming changes related to the waiver amendment and answer questions. These webinars are for people receiving services, families, coordinators of community services, providers, and anyone else who would like to learn more. Next slide, please. This slide is showing our agenda for the webinar today. Christelle and Bob, DDA's policy coordinator, will first share an overview related to Medicaid waivers and the DDA-operated program. Ama Awasu-Dankar, DDA's division chief for DDA eligibility, will share information related to the waiver program changes and what you need to know. We will then review changes to services that the DDA provides. Christelle will be sharing information related to day and employment services. Linda Yell, DDA's Deputy Director of Western Maryland Regional Office, will share information related to support services. Christy Culbreth, DDA's Division Chief for Self-Directed Services, will share information related to self-directed services. And Nova Evans, DDA's Director of Programs, will then share information related to residential services. We also have Debbie Belay, DDA's Eastern Shore Regional Office, Director of Community Services, who will share information related to new visit requirements for coordinators of community services. Christy will then review the new orientation required for self-directed services and share information about new and updated forms for self-directed services. Christelle will also share some information about new rules starting October 6th, and then we will conclude with some new resources and tools. After each section that we talk about today, we will pause to answer a few questions in the question box and take a couple of live questions specific to the topic we just shared. At the conclusion of our presentation, there will be additional time for questions and public comments. To support all participants' opportunity to ask a question, when called on, each person can ask one question. Additional questions can be asked by submitting in the question box or raising your hand again. I am now going to turn it over to Christelle to share the overview. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Rhonda. Good afternoon. My name is Christelle Mba, and I'm the Policy Coordinator for Federal Programs. Next slide, please. What is a Medicaid waiver or waiver program? A Medicaid waiver lets some Medicaid rules be set aside to help more people get the services they need at home or in the community instead of in a facility or institution. The Medicaid waiver or waiver program allows services or benefits that Medicaid does not usually cover. Next slide, please. A waiver is not an entitlement. Services provided by a waiver are not an automatic benefit, even if you are eligible. If eligible, you're not guaranteed to get services because there are a limited number of spots in the program. If spots are full, you will be placed on a wait list until a spot becomes available. Next slide, please. The DDA currently operates 3 Medicaid waiver programs on behalf of the department. As you can see here, the 3 DDA operated Medicaid waivers currently include the Family Supports, Community Supports, and Community Pathways waivers. Each has 3 different eligibility requirements and access to different services. The 3 waivers offer 52 services in total for 2 different delivery systems: the Community Provider Managed model and the Self-Directed Services model, where the person serves as the employer of record. And now I'm going to turn it over to Anna to share what you need to know about the waiver program changes. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Christelle. Good afternoon. My name is Ama Owusu-Donkor, DDA's Division Chief of Eligibility. Here are some information about the waiver program changes and what you need to know. Next slide, please. What is changing? 2 programs, the Family Supports Waiver and the Community Supports Waiver, are being combined into the Community Pathways Waiver. This change will start on October 6, 2025. Next slide, please. Why are these changes happening? The DDA is combining waiver programs to make services easier and quicker to access, provide more consistent person-centered support, and to improve the overall system for everyone. Next slide, please. Do you need to do anything? No. If you're in the Family Supports or Community Supports program, you will be automatically moved into the Community Pathways Waiver. You do not need to fill out any forms or take any action. Next slide, please. What does this mean for you? You will still get the same services you do now. If you're in the Family Supports or the Community Supports programs, you will get a letter from Medicaid confirming that you are now enrolled in the Community Pathways Waiver, which you should keep. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn this over to Rhonda Workman.
Thank you, Ama. So we'll now take a few questions related to the information we've just shared. So we've talked about an overview of the DDA waiver programs, what a Medicaid waiver is, and information that you should be keeping in letters, notifications to family supports and community supports participants. So we had a question, what if we have not received this letter? So if you've not received the Medicaid notice letter, which is only going out to family supports and community supports participants, please reach out to the DDA regional office and we can further look into it. Just looking to see if we have any additional ones. Those appear to be the questions that are specific to the section we just reviewed. Do we have any questions that anybody would like to ask live? We can take a couple questions related to the information we just shared, and then we'll move on to changes to services.
Rhonda, we do have a few hands raised. The first one is from Sudaya Corbin, and I apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly.
Great, let's take 2 callers and then we'll move to the next section. So the team will be unmuting your mic, Sudaya, and then you can ask your question. Sudaya, are you able to share your question? Dr. Smalls, any update you could share?
Sudaya's mic should be unmuted so that she can ask her question.
Thank you. Sudaya, go ahead and ask your question, please. She may be having some technical difficulties on her end.
Okay.
Can we go ahead and go to Paulette's?
Okay. The next person is Paulette Roseburn.
Good afternoon, Paulette. Are you able to share your question, please? Paulette notes her mic is still muted.
All right. Yes. Hi, everyone. Yes, it takes a few minutes on our side for the mics to unmute. Yes, my question is, how does a participant know they have been approved for a slot under the waiver?
That's a really good question, Paulette. I'm going to table that, and that could be the first one at the end, just because we want to stay on topic.
Right. But please remember, on our side, it takes a minute for the mic to unmute to allow us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why don't we move on to the services, and then we will come back for some additional questions in the chat box and for those that are raising their hand. So if we can go to the next slide, Dr. Smalls, that would be great. So we want to talk a little bit about changes to services that the DDA provides. Can you go to the next slide, please? The DDA pays for 3 kinds of services, and we call these services in different groups. The first one being day and employment services, the second one being support services, and the third one being residential services. Next slide, please. As part of the changes to the waiver, the DDA made changes to some of the services in the Community Pathways waiver. Some of the changes that we proposed in the amendment included the removal of language that noted the service limit could be exceeded if the DDA authorized that. For services with new service limits and services with the language unless otherwise authorized by DDA that was removed, those services that are currently approved today above the limits that are proposed in the new amendment may continue until the end of the authorized plan year. So we're providing a glide path for those services to transition. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'm now going to review some changes to day and employment services. Next slide, please. Day and employment services are services that support you during the daytime. The DDA refers to these services as meaningful day. To get day and employment services, you must be 18 years or older and no longer in high school. The following slides provide an overview of day and employment service changes. Next slide, please. These services help you think about what kind of job you want, get a job, and keep a job in the community. What has changed? You can get employment services while you look for a job. The job you do must meet competitive integrated employment standards. This means the job must pay at least minimum wage, include opportunities to work with people without disabilities, and offer the same benefits and chances for advancement as other workers. Next slide, please. Additionally, discovery services can only be used once every 2 years. These services help you figure out what you're good at doing and what kind of job you would like to do. Discovery services help you identify your job interests and what you're good at. Job development services include up to 90 hours per year. The year is based on your person-centered plan. Please note, if currently approved above the limit, supports may continue until the end of the authorized plan year. Next slide, please. Coworker employment supports provide extra help from a coworker at your job and are only available during the first 3 months of your employment. Next slide, please. Career exploration. This is a short-term service to help you learn the new skills you will need to work. And what has changed with career exploration? Career exploration is now limited to 720 hours per year. The year is based on your person-centered plan year. Please note, if currently approved above the limit, supports may continue until the end of the authorized plan year. Next slide, please. The next service is community development services. These services provide direct support so you can be more connected to your community. Staff will support you to develop and maintain social or other skills you need. And what has changed with community development services? Dedicated support, also known as one-on-one staff support, can be approved temporarily for up to 6 months. Dedicated support can be approved temporarily for participants new to services who have a specific documented behavioral need. Next slide, please. Rehabilitation services. This is a service you can get during the day when you are not working. You can get support to build skills and participate in social and community activities. Support is provided in small and large groups of people in provider programs or in the community. What has changed with rehabilitation? Dedicated support, also known as one-on-one staff support, can be approved temporarily for up to 6 months. Dedicated support can be approved temporarily for participants who are new to services who have a specific documented behavioral need. Next slide, please. Medical daycare. This service helps you participate in a group program that provides healthcare, nursing, therapists, personal care, and other support. What has changed with medical daycare? You can now get behavioral support services while you get medical daycare services. Next slide, please. We're now going to open it up for questions related to changes to day and employment services.
Thank you, Christelle. So a few questions we received. When do these waiver changes go into effect? When do we have to start changing what is submitted in the plan? So the proposed implementation date is October 6, 2025. On October 6, 2025, if you're developing an initial plan or revised plan, these are options that can be selected. As we mentioned already, if you're authorized above the limits, that authorization can continue through the end of your plan year. Another question we received is, what happens to participants who need ongoing one-on-one staff support beyond 6 months to meet their health and safety needs? That's a great question. So what we've shared here and in our proposed amendment is that we will authorize dedicated supports up to 6 months for behavioral health needs. If an individual has health and safety needs, we will also authorize emergency nursing support services so that a nursing care plan can be developed to support those needs. During those 6 months, with the documentation and the development of the behavior support plan and/or nursing care plan and evidence to support that assessed need, the DDA can authorize dedicated supports beyond the 6 months. Now we'll take a few questions from the phone. Looks like our first hand raised is from Brooke.
Brooke, you have received a notification to unmute yourself.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Good afternoon, Brooke.
Okay. Hey, so I have a question about the 6 months. Is that only for individuals who are transitioning, or is that for anyone who's currently receiving waiver services?
It would be for new people or anybody currently receiving services. We also had a couple questions in the chat that wanted to know if the 6-month limit means that's the limit of the service. And another question was, what if they have ongoing behavioral or nursing care needs? So a few things just to note. DDA currently authorizes dedicated supports, meaning one-on-one or two-on-one supports to participants based on assessed need. Assessed needs, as per the waiver application, is documented in either a behavior support plan, a nursing care plan with supporting evidence in risk sections and other focus areas. Those services can be authorized for more than 6 months. The change that we're noting in the proposal for the amendment is that people that are new to services that have that behavioral support need but don't have a behavior support plan yet developed, we may authorize up to 6 months of dedicated supports to provide the time for the development of that behavior support plan. Thank you, Brooke, for sharing your question. Dr. Smalls, can we go to the next person that raised their hand?
The next person is Yelena, and your mic should be unmuted.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I actually have 2 questions. The first question is, with the services, the waivers merging, does this eliminate the application to EDD when moving from home to residential?
So Yelena, a couple things. We're going to try to keep our questions focused on the topic, which is day and employment services. But I will share with your question, there is no application to EDD if you're currently enrolled in the program and you're going to be accessing residential services. Do you have any questions specific to day or employment services?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I heard the mention of emergency nursing supports.
Mm-hmm.
How do we utilize this? Is it requested when you're requesting the 6 months, the temporary 6 months?
Yeah, you would want to coordinate with the regional office if there was an urgent or emergency need, and a revised emergency plan can be created, and that should be coordinated with the regional office.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Okay, why don't we go on to the next section, and we will be coming back to other questions in the chat box, but let's go on and move to support services, where Linda Yell is going to share information about the support services.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Yale, the Deputy Director of the Western Maryland Regional Office. Next slide, please. Support services are services that support parts of your life that are not supported with meaningful day or residential services. These services can provide you with access to assistive technology, opportunities to learn about and the assessed need for positive behavior support strategies, support your family or caregivers through training or mentoring or even respite. They also allow you to access personal supports that help you participate in your home and community life. It also gives you access to nursing supports. The following slides provide an overview of the support services that are changing. Next slide, please. Assistive technology. This service supports you to stay safe and to maintain or improve your independence skills. It includes an assessment of your technology needs and allows you to help choose and get and maintain the technology that can increase your access to services. The monthly fee is what has changed. So in assistive technology, there are services that have a monthly fee. If your device has a monthly subscription or a service fee, that can now be paid through the waiver. Next slide, please. Personal emergency response systems, sometimes known as PERS, are no longer covered by this waiver. Instead, they are now covered by the Maryland Community First Choice Program, which is a state plan service. The personal emergency response system devices are also called medical alert systems, and they include a base unit and a wearable button. They let a person quickly contact emergency services. Next slide, please. Behavior support services are services if you are experiencing or likely to experience difficulty at home or in the community as a result of behavioral, psychological, or social and emotional challenges. The change is that these services are now available through virtual appointments, and you're allowed to have assessments and other consultations that are done virtually. This means that you can meet with your provider online instead of in person if that works better for you. Please remember that these services cannot be 100% virtual. Next slide, please. Also, brief implementation support services cannot be virtual. They must be done in person. You can also have one behavioral assessment per year. The year is based on your person-centered plan year. Next slide, please. Environmental assessments. This service is an assessment with you at home to see if changes in your home or technology would support your independence, health, and safety. The assessment now must be done by a licensed occupational therapist who is in good standing with Maryland rules. Next slide, please. Environmental modification is the small changes to your home like grab bars, ramps, railings, warnings on walking surfaces, alert devices, adaptations to electrical, phone, and lighting systems. The changes are that smart home devices that need to be attached to your home are now covered. Some of these examples are voice-activated door openers and blind and shade openers. Next slide, please. Family and peer mentoring supports. This service connects you and your family to mentors that have had similar experiences to yours. They can explain community service programs and strategies that they have used to access and achieve their goals. The change is that family mentors must have lived experience. That means that they are a parent or a family that has gone through similar things themselves. Peer mentors are people with disabilities who have also lived the experience. They support others by sharing what they have learned as they have gone through their life. Next slide, please. Family caregiver training and empowerment services. These cover educational materials, training programs, workshops, conferences that help you or an unpaid family caregiver. It helps to understand your disability, to get a better at providing support. It helps to identify community resources and supports. It can also develop or improve parenting skills, develop advocacy skills, and support you or your caregiver in developing additional advocacy skills. What has changed is that the organized healthcare delivery system providers can now provide this service. An organized healthcare delivery system provider is an organization that's approved by the state to help deliver and pay for certain services in the waiver. Next slide, please. Housing support services are short-term services that help you find and keep your own home. You can now get these services virtually, which means online, and you do not have to meet with somebody in person. Next, Christy is going to talk about individual and family directed goods and services. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Rhonda mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, my name is Christy Colbreth. I'm the DDA's Division Chief for Self-Directed Services, and I'm going to share some updates regarding individual and family directed goods and services, because those are services that are only available to people who self-direct, so people who are in the self-directed services model. Individual and family directed goods and services are services, activities, or supplies that you cannot get through the Community Pathways waiver or through another Medicaid waiver service. So what has changed for individual and family directed goods and services? For recruitment and advertising, you can still get help with the cost of finding staff. You can get up to $500 per year for recruitment and advertising. Next slide. For other goods and services, these are the goods, services, and items that are requested using the individual and family directed goods and services request form. Starting on October 6th, 2025, there is a new yearly limit of $5,000. If something was already approved before that date, you can keep using it through the end of the authorization period. But new requests after that date cannot go over the $5,000 yearly limit. Next slide. And for day-to-day administrative supports, you can request up to 10 hours per month. This must be approved in the person-centered plan. After October 6, 2025, you will have to use a decision tree checklist to help decide if this support is needed. Next slide. Within individual and family directed goods and services, some items are no longer allowed, including educational tuition like the cost of school or college classes. Commercial use items or things meant for business or making money. Next slide. Additional items that are not allowed are diversional or recreational items and activities. These are things used for fun, just for fun, like events, sports, games, or toys. Goods, services, and equipment and supplies that a household that does not include a person with a disability would pay for as a household expense are also not allowed. Examples include monthly internet services and subscriptions for television services. I'll turn it back over to Linda to review living caregiver supports. Next slide.
Thank you, Christy. So live-in caregiver supports refer to somebody who is providing support and lives in your home that you own or rent. What is changed is that this service is only available if the person lives in your home, and it cannot be your family's home or the caregiver's home or a home that's owned or rented by a provider. There must be a written agreement in place and followed between you and your live-in caregiver. Next slide, please. Nursing support services are supports that a registered nurse licensed in Maryland provides, and it has nursing consultation, health case management, and nursing delegation services. These services must now be provided by an employee or a DDA provider. It can no longer be provided by a relative. These changes help to make sure that the nursing support services are used when needed and provided by a qualified professional that is not related to you. Nursing consultation and nursing health case management services are now limited to no more than 4 hours every 3 months. Next slide, please. Participant education, training, and advocacy supports cover the cost of training programs, workshops, or conferences that you need to attend to learn more about how to develop advocacy skills, exercise your civil rights, and develop skills that are needed to control and be responsible for your services. What has changed is that the organized healthcare delivery system providers can now provide this service. Next slide. Personal supports. This service helps you with different kinds of support needs if you live in your own home or your family's home and would like to improve your independent living skills. What has changed is that the dedicated support can be approved temporarily for participants new to service who have a specific documented behavioral need. This can be approved for up to 6 months as a behavior plan is being developed. Next slide, please. Remote support services help you become more independent in your home, so you don't have to rely on staff. Staff can be available to you as needed and can check on you through technology instead of being in person. You have to be able to turn off this technology if you want to. So that's what's new in this waiver. Next slide. Respite care services are short-term supports that give you and your family or other primary caregivers a break from your daily routine. They may be provided in your own home, a home of a respite care provider, a licensed residential site, or at an overnight camp or youth day camp that is certified by the Maryland Department of Health. This means that the camp must meet the state health and safety standards and be officially listed and approved by the Maryland Department of Health. Christy will now talk about support broker services. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon again. If you self-direct your services, you can choose support broker services. A support broker is a service that can provide employer-related information and advice for a participant in support of self-direction to make informed decisions related to day-to-day management of staff providing services within the available budget. There are new requirements for support brokers. To be a support broker, a person must sign and follow a code of conduct and must successfully finish training and meet all requirements set by the DDA. Next slide. There are situations where you must hire a support broker. You must hire a support broker if any of the following apply to you. You have chosen a relative, legally responsible person, like a parent or spouse, or a legal guardian to be your designated representative. That means that they're helping you manage your services. Or if you're receiving waiver services from a relative, legally responsible person, or a legal guardian. That means that they are being paid to provide support to you, either as an employee or working for a vendor or working for a DDA provider. Or you have hired someone, and that means anyone, to provide your day-to-day administrative supports. Now I'll turn it back over to Linda to review transition services. Next slide.
Transition services provide funding for certain expenses if you move from an institution or a group home or from a provider-operated home into your own home in the community. What has changed is that you can now use your transition services for the cost of training staff before you move. Next slide, please. Transportation services help you independently get to the community activities of your choice. Your community is where you live, work, shop, or spend your days. The service is provided based on the assessed need for this service in your person-centered plan. Nothing has changed for transportation services. Next slide, please. Vehicle modifications cover the cost to you to modify or change your vehicle so that it is more accessible. The change is that it clarifies this service does not include the cost of charging electric vehicles. Next slide, please. We're now going to open it up for some questions related to the changes in the support services we just covered.
Thank you, Linda. And Christy, thank you for presenting that information. So we're getting a variety of questions. So I'm going to speak to some of the questions that are in the chat or in the question box, and then we will open it up for some live questions in a few minutes. So personal supports question related to, is personal supports now being limited to 6 months? So the information we're sharing today related to meaningful day services, related to personal supports, and you'll also see it in the residential services, is that the DDA can authorize up to 6 months of dedicated supports when people are new to services and we don't have the assessed need documented in a behavior support plan, or when a person is currently in services, right, and they have a crisis or situation occurs and they need dedicated supports, and the behavior support plan has not been able to be developed. In those two situations, we can authorize up to 6 months of dedicated supports to provide the team time for the development of those behavioral support plans. If it's a health and safety need, then we can authorize emergency nursing support services so that a nurse can come in and develop that nursing care plan and also look at other supports and assess needs to be documented in the plan. Anybody who is currently authorized dedicated supports now, today, whether it's in meaningful day services, personal supports, or residential services, will continue to receive those services. At the next annual plan, you would, if you have that assessed need continued, you would make that request and upload supporting documents like the behavior support plan, the nursing care plan, and other supports, and that can be authorized beyond the 6 months. So the 6-month limit is specifically for people new to services, somebody coming out of foster care and we don't have supports or behavior plans for them, a transitioning youth coming in that we don't have a behavior support plan developed for them. So these are for new people that will authorize up to 6 months to allow that time for the development of the supporting documents. Another question we had relates to the transition of personal emergency response systems. You heard Linda say that those will now be covered under the Maryland Community First Choice Program. One of the questions was, if an individual has a medical alert, when do they need to change over to the Community First Choice Program? So as we mentioned in the beginning, if you're currently authorized that service in your plan, that service can continue and you can access that medical alert through the end of your plan year. So at your next annual plan, then you would want to have those services transitioned if you still need them through the Community First Choice Program. Another program or another question, Linda, we had was related to environmental assessments. And the question was whether assessment fees for environmental assessments are now covered. Can you clarify with us related to environmental assessments and what the service is and the coverage of the fee?
Yes, so to have an environmental assessment, there will be a fee that is needed to cover the cost of the licensed provider that's coming to do the assessment. So that fee would be included in your PCP under environmental assessment. Then you would be getting a report back from them that you would then use to be able to authorize for the change that needs to occur.
Thank you, Linda. Another question, Linda, related to assistive technology. And the question is whether a seizure watch and monitoring software could be covered under assistive technology.
Yes, that is definitely assistive technology that could be looked at in your person-centered plan to see if it would help to increase your independence and your health and safety.
Yep, thank you, Linda. And if you have that assessed need now, I would start to talk with your team and look for making that request in your person-centered plan. We had another question related to behavior support services. And the question was asking whether or not multiple providers can now provide that service. And so just to share, as noted in the behavior support services policy in DDA's policy stat, behavior support services will be authorized for one provider so that that provider can holistically, which means completely serve that person in all different types of services and environments. So we are not authorizing multiple providers. Linda, for virtual supports, if a provider wants to now start to add virtual supports, because you've shared some options here today, will they need to add or update their provider program service plan to include virtual supports?
Yes, before a provider can provide that service and be paid for it, it must be part of their provider service plan. If a provider is interested in adding that, they need to submit a new provider service plan to the regional office so that it can be approved and they can get a new letter with that authorization.
Thank you, Linda. Christy, a couple questions for you. For the individual and family directed goods and services, you shared with us today that the goods and services will now be limited up to 5,000. The question is that 5,000 per item or cumulative, meaning all the goods and services?
That is a great question. The $5,000 is cumulative across all service requests, across all individual and family directed goods and service requests.
Thank you, Christy. And then Christy, you mentioned a decision tree, and I know we have some additional information that we're going to be sharing. For those on the call, we will be sharing additional information about the self-directed services decision tree. And also we want to encourage you to join us on Friday's webinar related to self-directed services, where we'll provide some more information. Dr. Smalls, let's take a couple questions from people who have raised their hands, specifically related to support services.
Okay. Our first person up is Mimi Suwada. And again, I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Hi. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. So I just had a couple of quick questions. So the first one is regarding DDA's process for consultation with other government divisions when processing new policies or regulations. So one example would be consulting with the Department of Labor when introducing residential restrictions for employees.
Yeah, so Mimi, do you have a question specifically related to support services? If you could share one question related to support services, we're happy to answer that question.
Yeah, so the question is regarding the residential restriction, I guess specifically for IFDGS for day-to-day administrative services. And I guess how will, okay, sorry, let me ask my other question, just to be more, I guess, specific. Have all of the changes for support services been officially approved by the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the waiver application and proposals that we have submitted have been submitted to CMS. We have been in discussions with CMS and answering their questions, and we are expecting their approval before 10/6. Thank you for sharing your question. Let's go to the next caller, and so that everybody can have an opportunity to ask one question. So Dr. Small, can we go to the next caller for a question related to support services?
Yes, our next question is from L. Enoch.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you for joining us today. Do you have a question related to support services?
Yes, I wanted to know, as far as the day-to-day administrative is concerned, you're taking it down to 10 hours a month, and for the services that the day-to-day does, there's no way you can get that done in 10 hours. How come they're not allowing the families to use unallocated funds for over the 10 hours?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We have shared in some of our previous webinars, and we'll again continue to share information in the upcoming self-directed webinar and the forms one. For the day-to-day administrator, we have looked at the services and supports that are being provided, and as noted in the waiver application proposal, we have outlined the various services that can support individuals, including personal supports, targeted case management, support brokers, and other resources that are available to individuals. We absolutely want to help support individuals, to teach and walk alongside them, to help them to learn or to support them in some of the supports that have been provided by a day-to-day administrator. And so as we've reflected in the proposal, that the supports for day-to-day administrative supports will be related to assisting individuals in coordinating medical appointments, and then some household or lawn snow removal type of activities. And so the scope of it will be more focused, and therefore the 10 hours per month is being proposed in our amendment to CMS, and that's based on the funding that was allocated through the budget process. So more information will come related to the decision tree that we'll talk about today and on Friday, that will help to share a little bit more about how to identify supports and services that a person needs, those supports that could be covered under other services to help the individual, and those services that could be covered under the day-to-day administrative support. Thank you so much for sharing your question. Dr. Smalls, can we go to the next person, please?
Yes, the next person is Chiara Jaffe. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced your name, Chiara.
Hi, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I had a quick question about the live-in caregiver supports. It indicated there's a change that, a live-in caregiver is not allowed in a home owned or rented by a provider. Does this mean that if somebody's in a group home that this, and they require a live-in caregiver, that this would not be covered?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Thank you for sharing that with us. So group home services are residential services called community living group home, or community living enhanced supports, or our supported living services, shared living services. Those are services specifically under our residential model that include supports that are provided either in the provider owned and operated home or the individual's own home. Live-in caregiver supports are a little bit different. Live-in caregiver supports are an arrangement where I, as a participant who have my own apartment, I live by myself, can hire someone that can provide supports to me, personal supports, other type of supports for me that are covered under the waiver. And in exchange, I will be covering their part of the rent for the apartment for them living with me. And also I can cover a part of some of their food allowance. So it's a caregiver living with the participant in the participant's own home, not a group home, not the family home, but the participant's own or rented home, in which that person then, their rent and some of their food costs are covered in exchange for providing services. Thank you so much for sharing that question. Let's go to the next section, which is residential, and then we will come back again to some of these questions. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nova Evans. I'm the DDA Director of Programs, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the residential services. Next slide, please. Okay, so residential services support you to live independently as possibly in the community. There are different types of residential services. You and your team can decide what works best for you. To get residential services, you must be 18 years or older. And on the following slides, we'll provide an overview of the specific residential services. Next slide, please. So residential supports can help you find a place to live, roommates, support staff that can help you learn and use skills you need to take care of yourself and your home and be part of your community. Next slide, please. So as Rhonda just mentioned, there are several different types of residential services. The first is supported living. So this service supports you to use or develop new independent living skills in your own home. It includes help finding an apartment, house, roommates, and supports based on what you need. And what has changed? Dedicated support can now be approved temporarily for participants new to services who have a specific documented behavioral need. The next is shared living. Oh, sorry, next slide. Shared living helps you build and keep skills needed for everyday life, including spending time with others. The service supports you to share a home and life experiences with another person, a couple, or a family in the community that you choose. The service is based on trust and commitment you and the person, couple, or family have with each other. And nothing's changing in shared living. Next slide, please. Community living group home. This service supports you to build and keep skills you need for everyday life, including spending time with others. The service supports you in a home rented or owned by a provider. And what has changed is that dedicated support, also known as one-to-one staff support, can be approved temporarily for up to 6 months for participants new to services who have a specific documented behavioral health need. Next slide, please. Community living enhanced supports. This service supports you to develop and keep skills needed for everyday life, spending time with others, and keeping you and others safe. It does this by providing additional behavioral supports, observation, and supervision in a home rented or owned by a provider. And what's changed is that dedicated supports, again also known as one-to-one staff support, can be temporarily approved for up to 6 months for participants new to services who have a specific documented behavioral health need. Next slide, please. So now we're going to open it up to any questions related to changes to residential services we just covered.
Thank you, Nova. Really appreciate that. So a couple questions. Who provides residential services? Is the question, for example, if you want help finding a place to live, who can provide this service? Can you talk about residential services and what they provide? And maybe we can then also talk a little bit about housing support services. And if you're talking, Nova, you're on mute.
Sorry, residential support services are provided at a provider-owned or rented home. For supported living, it can be an apartment or house with roommates that support based on what the participant needs and wants.
Great, thank you. We had a couple questions. People are starting to think about personal supports and live-in caregivers. So one question was, can you get personal supports and live-in caregiver? The answer would be no, because they would be duplicative. So personal supports is paying a provider or an employee to come into the home to provide supports, and live-in caregiver is providing rent, free rent, and a food allowance for supports. So they're two separate services. You would not be receiving them at the same time. Looking at a couple additional ones. How will supported living services work for waiver participants who do not qualify for dedicated support? So Nova, do you want to talk about supported living in terms of the general service, how there can be dedicated hours added on in addition to the general supported living service?
So if someone has medical or behavioral needs that meet the definition for additional one-to-one supports or dedicated supports, then they would have to have that in a behavior support plan or a nursing care plan and have that approved for their person-centered plan.
Thank you. And another person asked if they could get personal supports at community living group home. So community living group home supports and the residential services that Nova shared with us today all include assistance for the individual in the home. So personal supports is in a sense already embedded or part of that service. So a person would not have a plan, a person-centered plan that authorized community living group homes and personal supports at the same time, because they would also be what we would consider duplicative. Okay, some additional ones. Another question related to the 6 months. If someone needs one-to-one staffing for more than 6 months, what documentation is needed? Behavioral plan or documentation for providers. So as we've shared and noted in our waiver application, in order to authorize dedicated supports ongoing after the initial 6 months temporary option that we have proposed, we would need that nursing care plan or behavior support plan with supporting information. All right, just looking through some of the questions. So we're having some questions about the age of residential services. And so individuals can request residential services if they are 18 years of age or older. So that's the authorization eligibility criteria for that. Why don't we open it up for a few of the hands that are raised, and then we can come back to some of the other questions.
Okay. Our first one is Ariel Doros.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining us today.
Hi there. I have heard a lot today about in support services, all direct support services, including the ones we're talking about now, that you need behavior support plans and nursing care plans to get dedicated one-on-one services. For participants whose behavior support plans or nursing care plan do not qualify them for dedicated one-on-one services, how would, say, supported living services work day to day? Does this mean that everyone would need to do things in small groups?
Yeah, so the services that we have the authority, the federal authority to authorize is dedicated supports, and it's based on assessed need. And so that's where we continue to share that we need, the assessed need would be documented in the behavior support plan and the nursing care plan, and also could be reflected in other areas of the person-centered plan, but we need those two plans, the behavior support plan and nursing care plan, in order for us to authorize that. Supported living services is very similar to our group home services, with the exception that the participant rents or owns the home. And so it's not provider owned and operated. And then depending on how many individuals are in that home, different supports are available to include shared hours. And absolutely, we always want to support individuals in terms of integrating in their community, utilizing other natural and community supports. So it's really would be person specific. If you want to reach out to the regional office and you want to talk about a specific example or maybe a family member, we're happy to connect with you and try to work through and talk about some service options.
Sure. I just wanted to ask you to clarify one thing. Are you folks saying that unless you have a behavior support plan or nursing care plan that qualifies you to receive supported living or personal supports, that those services will no longer be available to people?
No, what we are saying is for dedicated one-to-one support. So our supports, our residential, our day supports in general can be provided in group settings. There are some individuals that due to a health or safety need or a behavioral need may need one-to-one supports. Maybe I have a choking hazard. I need someone with me when I'm eating. It's very individualized. And so for us to pay for that special extra dedicated supports, we need documentation of an assessed need. If an individual is seeking supported living or personal supports and doesn't have, those type of needs, the services can be authorized. We just wouldn't authorize additional services that we refer to as dedicated supports. So happy to, again, connect with you if you'd like to reach out to the regional office. I appreciate your questions, but they're different. These dedicated supports, these dedicated one-to-one and two-to-one supports would be authorize in addition to kind of the general service under our meaningful day and residential supports. So thank you so much for asking that question. Dr. Smalls, can we go to another person online?
Yeah. Our next person is Rita Scheinberg.
Hi, Rita.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Do you have a question related to residential services?
Well, I don't know if it's really, I'm not sure exactly where it goes. Because I'm very concerned about self-directed services maintaining the waiver once family is gone. And that includes, I don't think residential services is self-directed. I'm not sure. But anyway, I was thinking the day-to-day administrator would be the person that would be that glue when all the stuff that I'm doing for free and I'm dead. So it doesn't appear it is. So how are self-directed people supposed to maintain the waiver once family is gone that does all the paperwork and make sure they can still get on the waiver each year?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Rita. And I know that some of the advocacy groups have done some research and has some thoughts related to future planning. That is something that collectively as a state should be considered. So thank you for sharing that. We do know that individuals have different supports in their life. Some people have a lot of different supports. Some people use exclusively family, and some people may not have as many team members. And so we absolutely encourage and would want to support all individuals to explore and expand those, what we would call circles of supports. But thank you for sharing your concern and question. I think that question is more than for people that self-direct. I think it's for any individual that we want to make sure that those supports are available to them as they continue to move forward, as they age and also their family members or team age. So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Smalls, do you want to go to the next question?
Okay, our next person is Kristen Mills. Okay, we can come back to Kristen Mills. Our next person is Marilyn Brennan. Marilyn, are you able to unmute your mic? Okay, Kristen Mills, are you able to unmute your mic? Okay, we will move to Charity Allwell.
And Marilyn has noted in the chat or that she has unmuted it, but there must be some. Oh, Charity.
Hello, can you all hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Okay,
Hi.
good. Yes, my question is in regards to delegation. From my understanding, I heard you had mentioned that the individual for like case management has to be like 4 hours, no more than 4 hours in every 90 days. But I wanted to find out in regards to individuals that are like level 5 or 6 that requires like medication requirement and the nurse has to visit like every 45 days. Does this also apply to the restriction of the 4 hours per 90 days?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that question. The slide that we shared in the support services related to nursing support services was specifically related to nurse consultation and nurse health case management. That's where the limits are noted. For nurse delegation that you're talking about, those limits would not apply because, as you mentioned, there is a 45-day nursing assessment that would need to happen. And so those services are based on the nurse's judgment and as required by the Maryland Board of Nursing. Thank you for sharing that question with us. Dr. Smalls, let's go on to the next section, and we will come back again to these questions also. But let's go and turn it over to Debbie Belay to share some information about new visit requirements for coordinators of community services.
Good afternoon. I'm Debbie Belay with the Eastern Shore Regional Office, and I'm going to review some of the new roles of the Coordinator of Community Services. Next slide, please. Okay, so your coordinator is the main point of contact for making sure your services are working well for you. They help you to update your person-centered plan on an annual or as-needed basis. Your coordinator must meet with you at least once every 3 months on a quarterly basis to check in on you and your services. They should visit you in person at the place where you're receiving your services. If you get services at several different places, they should visit you at a different site for each of their quarterly visits. Next slide, please. When your coordinator of community services comes to visit you, they will now ask some additional questions to make sure that you are getting the support you need and want. These include, do you feel like your privacy is being respected? And are your health and safety needs being met? Next slide, please. Some people receive their services virtually with online supports. Your coordinator will want to ask, do you get hands-on help when you need it with your virtual supports? Do you get help using technology if needed? And are you happy with the virtual online supports, or would you rather have in-person supports? Next slide, please. Additionally, if a relative, legally responsible person, or legal guardian provides any services to you, your coordinator should be monitoring and ask about, do you want to find more people to support you? And if so, what can you and your coordinator do to find more people? Is it still your choice to receive services from this person? And do you want to find other people to help you to make your decisions? Next slide, please.
Thank you, Debbie, for sharing information related to coordinators of community services. So we got a few questions related to this area. One of the questions is asking where to document these additional questions for monitoring and follow-up. So we do know that in our monitoring and follow-up form, there is a text box where information can be noted, and we will be providing specific guidance for coordinators of community services in terms of how to document the additional questions. Debbie, there's also a question about monitoring and follow-up, and we've noted that it must be in person in the place where the participant is receiving services. And the question was asked if the in-person was required or optional. Can you talk about the requirement for in-person monitoring and follow-up visits?
Yes. The expectation is always that the coordinator meets with the person face-to-face to review their services, to ensure that their health and safety needs are being addressed, and to also visually assess the individual. Are they clean? Are they healthy? Is their environment safe and meeting their needs, and to also get a gauge emotionally with the person. Do they express themselves that they're happy and content, or do they appear to be in distress, etc. So the ideal and the expectation will always be an in-person visit to be able to do that total assessment of the individual, their environment, their needs. If there needs to be an exception where you cannot do an in-person visit, the person is unwell, may have COVID, etc., please ensure with your supervisor, and then if you need permission through the regional office, we can discuss those situations. But ideally, the way that your monitorings are set up is they're set up quarterly, which gives you 90 days from the date that that monitoring opens to complete it. A CCS, a coordinator, should be scheduling early within those 90 days to ensure that they can do that face-to-face visit, that they get that monitoring in before it closes out, and that they also have the ability to reschedule in that 90-day period to ensure that they get that face-to-face if at all possible.
Thank you so much, Debbie. You answered a few of the additional questions, so really appreciate you sharing that, that information. Just looking to see if we have some additional CCS questions. One person was asking, are they visiting them in their home when living with the family? Can you talk about the different places where the coordinator of community services should be visiting participants?
Sure. So if a individual, a participant, is receiving services in their home, say personal supports, et cetera, then yes, the expectation is that they visit the person at every site of service. We do ask that the coordinator always respect the situation they're in. For instance, if you're visiting someone receiving employment supports and they're on their job, that you want to be respectful of their time to schedule around when the person may have a break, and when you can talk, because you never want to interfere with a person's life or their services, but you are there to monitor and guarantee them.
Thank you, Debbie. Appreciate that. Okay. Another person says, well, what if the individual insists in only meeting at home? Or what if, Debbie, the family refuses, to support these visits? Are those red flags? What can a coordinator of community service do? Who should they contact? Should they be alarmed?
It is a concern because individuals, participants have signed a person-centered plan, which essentially says that they agree to all of their services, including coordination of community services. And part of the role of the coordinator, as we have noted, is to visit the person at each site in person. Those discussions, if there's conflict, if there's a reason why a coordinator cannot have access to the participant in their site, the discussion with the regional office would need to occur, and we'd need to really determine why they can't occur at that site.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. And again, as Debbie shared, we just want to make sure people are getting their needs met, their satisfaction with services, all those things that Debbie has shared with us. And so having that in-person visit allows the coordinator to be able to assess multiple things during that visit. And at any time, if there's any concerns or suspicion, please reach out to the regional office so that we can support you and also support the participant, because we just really want to make sure that people are getting the services and supports they need, that they're able to work on their goals, that their choices and preferences are being respected, and their health and safety. Dr. Smalls, let's take a few questions from people who've raised their hand, please, related to coordinators of community services in terms of the new requirements.
Okay. Our first person is Kristen Mills. Kristen, are you able to unmute yourself?
Hello.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. Do you have a question related to coordinators of community services?
No, I put a question in there earlier though, and I'm not Kristen, I'm Elizabeth Sakaris.
Okay, Elizabeth, do you have a question related to coordinators of community services that we can answer for you?
No, it was actually on something way back. It was a question. Is it possible to ask that one?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Two things. One was that in regards to the DDA manual and getting behavioral support services, it's my understanding that in order to widen the staff pool, that a high school diploma is no longer required. Does that apply also to direct support professionals?
Yes, that's a great question. We have in the waiver application standards related to staff qualifications. We have over the years looked at things such as requirements for high school diplomas and GEDs and such. So we would need to refer to that specific service and confirm with you the requirements, but they are noted in each after each service. So the waiver application, the way it's designed is it will talk about the service description, the scope, including requirements and standards. It will then say whether it's a self-directed or provider managed service. It will also talk about the types of providers, such as legal guardians, legally responsible people. And then it'll note qualified qualification requirements. And the qualifications will go into whether the provider needs to be licensed or certified. And it also gets into details related to the direct support professional in terms of whether or not there are age requirements, certification requirements, high school diplomas and such. So happy to connect with you if you want to reach out to us directly. We can.
It was very much noted though, as very specifically as a change that a high school diploma was no longer required, like it was just specified. So I get that part. And just the other one was around the issues with the family supports and the things you were talking about in terms of financial management and using other people. So one particular issue, with my son is really, we've been working with him on his checking account, on his banking, on his Medicaid, everything. But in order to do that, we have to have access and legal power of attorney to be able to teach him those things because we are using his account. And my big concern about if it's DSPs, if it's support, any of those other people basically would require legal power of attorney to access account numbers. That would include Medicaid. And anybody knows if you've ever waited on the phone for Medicaid or insurance, that's not something our young adults would be able to do without extensive supports. But it is also the manual specifies nothing about what is actually required to do those things. That's very different than just going shopping. But financial management does require, in terms of, unless someone else is owning those monies and has control over them, that would require legal power of attorney for any of those whoever is assigned to be that support, be it CSS, be it whatever. Someone has to have that legal authority to do that. And I just think that complicates matters, and just it hasn't sort of been discussed or acknowledged. And I'm just kind of, I guess, like throwing it out there because I think it has to be, if we're really going to talk about how to have my son be independent, he will.
Oh, I think we may have lost her. So thank you so much for sharing that information and your thoughts related to that. And we absolutely would suggest that for all individuals and family members that they carefully consider, access to information and accounts as the concerns have been raised. So thank you for sharing that. Let's go to our next section, Dr. Smalls. And the next section is related to new orientation requirements for self-directed services. So we're going to turn it over to Christy.
Good afternoon again. Just a quick plug. If you enjoy the sound of my voice, we would really appreciate coming to our webinar on Friday, September 19th. We've been able to cover, and we will continue to cover, the changes to self-directed services in brief during this webinar, but we will go into much more detail on the Friday webinar. So we encourage all of you who are in attendance today who have big questions, please come to that webinar, and I assure you you'll get more answers. That webinar and this one will both be recorded and available online as well. So let's get started reviewing our new orientation requirement for people who are entering into self-directed services. Next slide. Beginning October 6, 2025, any participant who wants to use the self-directed services model must first complete a new orientation process. You must complete that orientation if you are new to a DDA waiver service, DDA waiver services, and want to self-direct your services, or if you're currently using the provider managed model and want to switch to self-directed services. Next slide. So what is the orientation process? The orientation will be led by your coordinator of community services. You will go through 3 training modules from the DDA's Self-Directed Services training series. Module 1, which is a self-direction overview, which is really what self-direction is and how it works. Module 2, the Self-Directed Services team, which is about who is involved and how they support you. And Module 3, person-centered planning, which is all about how to create a plan that reflects your goals and choices. Next slide. You'll also complete an orientation checklist to help show that you understand what you've learned, and you'll also review a frequently asked questions tool to help answer any questions. The DDA has created these tools that your CCS will have available to them. Next slide. So, when does the orientation need to be done? If you are planning to start self-directing your services before the end of this year, December 31st, 2025, you must complete the orientation by March 2026. So you have some time to get that orientation done. If you plan to start self-directing your services in 2026, January 1st or later, you must complete that orientation before you start self-directing. Next slide. I'll turn it back over to Rhonda for questions related to the new orientation requirements for self-directed services.
Thank you, Christy. So a couple people were excited to hear you're going to share more information in Friday's webinar and are looking for the link. So just for everybody on the call, if you have registered for today's webinar, which you've joined us today, you are automatically registered for all the webinars related to the DDA amendment and our updates. So no further action is needed. You will receive the link to join that on Friday. So thank you so much for asking that. Question about training for coordinators of community services on how to do this orientation. So Christy just shared the process. Really, the modules are already created, and so the CCS would be working with them. Christy, do you want to go through again the process in terms of what the coordinator would do, which modules, and the frequently asked questions that they would be using that would be developed by the DDA?
Absolutely. If you are currently a support broker, you are very familiar with this curriculum. It's the curriculum we use to certify support brokers, but it is curriculum that is available and made for all stakeholders, participants who self-direct, coordinators of community service, support brokers, family members. Modules 1, 2, and 3 are the first 3 modules in the self-directed services series. So during an orientation, the coordinator of community service would play those videos and mark that those videos have been viewed. They then will have a frequently asked questions tool that they will go over with every participant. So we ensure that the really important questions are getting asked and answered during that orientation meeting. And finally, they complete a checklist that just notes that the orientation was completed, so that the person reviewing the person-centered plan knows that that orientation was finished. I hope that's clear.
Thank you, Christy. We had a comment that the person thinks that orientation for all new waiver participants would be great. That could include and supplement self-direction orientation. Want to know if there was something in the works. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. And yes, we are working with some of our advocates and stakeholders, and we want to explore having an orientation that would include an overview of both service delivery models, and have information in the orientation that would help people to know what is needed and how they can be successful. So thank you for sharing that question. We are thinking the same thing and want to make sure that we're providing information to individuals so they can make informed decisions. Another question, Christy, related to self-directed service modules to work with families. Can a link be sent to us? Can you talk about the self-directed training series, where it is on the website, and share how it's available to everybody?
Absolutely. I'm going to put a link in the chat, but it is available on the DDA website in the same section that we call Self-Directed Services Guidance and Forms. So it's the same place where you can find our current manual, which is a really important resource, and also all of our forms. Right at the end of that page, there's an entire section on the Self-Directed Services Training Series. We're all 17 modules. They're made and created to be pretty accessible. So some modules are 5 minutes long. They're very short, and some go up to about 30 minutes, but none much longer than that. And they're built for people and for teams to watch whenever they have questions about certain topics. So I'll put that link in the chat.
Thank you, Christy. So another question is, this new self-directed service orientation, is it required for everybody who's self-directing today? Or is the requirement for new people? And can you talk about people that may be enrolled, October, that has a little bit of a glide path for them to complete the training, since they really would, the requirement would be implemented in 10-6?
Yes, that's an excellent question. So this orientation requirement is only for people who are new to self-directed services. So if you are currently self-directing your services, you are not required to complete the orientation. The curriculum is available to you if you'd like to watch it, and we recommend it. After October 6th, between October 6th and the end of the year, if you begin self-directing, you will need to complete the orientation before March 2026. So you have about 3 extra months to complete the training. So you can start self-directing, but you need to complete the orientation within the first 3 months of the year. And if you start self-directing after 2026, after January 1st, you'll need to complete that orientation before you begin self-directing.
Thank you, Christy. Let's take a question or two live, Dr. Smalls, and then we'll keep moving with our other slides. Can you open up the mic for the next person? Thank you.
Our next person is Dominique Clark.
Hi, Dominique. Do you have a question about the orientation?
No, my question was from the residential section. If it's possible to ask about that, let me know.
Yeah, no, we're gonna I just want to make sure we get through the slides, but we will come back to you, or if you'd like to put in the chat, we could take a look at it. But let's take questions. Again, I'm asking for 1 question per person related to self-directed services orientation. But if you put that in the question, I'll take a look at that. Thank you.
Okay, I already put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Our next question was from L. Enoch.
Yes, good afternoon. I had another question in reference to the proposed amendments. I know in this webinar You're saying everything is effective October 6th. Has the federal government approved these amendments?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And we have shared a little bit earlier, so I'm happy to share again. The federal government is reviewing it, and we are expecting their approval before October 6th. We're in ongoing discussions and dialogue with them. So thank you for sharing that. Why don't we move on to the next section, which is related to new and updated forms for self-direction. Again, please continue to put your questions in the question box, and we will be circling back at the end with the time available. So Christy, turning it back to you.
Good afternoon again. Today, I'll share some information about new and updated self-directed services forms. Again, just a reminder, the DDA will be conducting additional webinars related to self-directed services on Friday, September 19th, and another webinar related to forms specifically on October 1st. During these webinars, we will go into further detail about how to complete these new and updated forms. Next slide. If you self-direct your services, you will need to use some new and updated forms. The DDA has updated the participant agreement, the self-directed services budget sheet, the budget modification form, and the family as staff form. Next slide. As a reminder, the participant agreement is required for all people who self-direct. We have updated the participant agreement to note that if you are under the age of 18, you must name a designated representative to help manage your services. That is option 2 on the participant agreement. Everyone will need to use this new form on your next plan year or immediately if something changes in your situation. Next slide. The self-directed services budget sheet has been updated to be easier to understand and use. Use this new budget sheet the next time you need to create or change your budget after October 6th. Next slide. The budget modification form has also been updated to be clearer. It now shows that the individual and family directed goods and services are limited to $5,000 per year. You should use the updated budget modification form the next time you need to make a budget change. Next slide. The DDA's family as staff form must be completed by everyone who self-directs. The form is used to show if relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians provide waiver services to you. So the first option on the family as staff form is saying no, those people will not provide waiver services. So just a reminder, everybody completes it, but it is to report when those people provide the service. You must use this updated form during your next plan year or if something changes in your situation. Next slide. We also have 2 new forms for self-directed services. One is called the Day-to-Day Administrative Supports Decision Tree. This new form helps you and your team decide what kinds of help you may need from day-to-day administrative supports. The new form is required during your next plan year if you are requesting day-to-day administrative supports. The second is called the Self-Directed Services Orientation Checklist, and you heard me talk a little bit about that earlier in the last section. This checklist will help coordinators of community services show that the self-directed services orientation takes place for people who are required to attend it. Next slide. I'll pass it back over to Rhonda to share upcoming news as well.
Great. Well, let's take a couple questions. Let me share this first, then we'll do questions. Thank you, Christy. So a couple things to share in addition to the forms that are being updated. We are also busy working on updating additional information and creating other forms or tools to comply with the requirements from the federal government. One of them relates to a reporting tool that will be used when a person, regardless of service model, is using a legally responsible person, a legal guardian, or a relative, and also a process and documentation related to substitute judgment. And Christelle will talk a little bit about that in a minute. We are also getting some input to update our rights and responsibilities form, which is available on our website right now. So we're looking to update that. We are updating our guide to services to account for DDA offering one Medicaid waiver program versus the 3. We are also updating our guidelines for service authorization provider billing documentation to align with the amendment. So therefore adding the new assistive technology monthly service fee, the changes to goods and services, service limits, etc. And also looking at our person-centered planning manual to update that. And then lastly, we are also going through our policies and policy stats so that all information could be in line with the amendment. So more to come on those, and we will be sharing and communicating information related to that. So let's go to the next slide and take some questions related to the forms that Christy was talking about. Christy, one question, when will the forms be online? Can you talk a little bit about our additional webinars, information, and then when they will be available?
Absolutely. So our additional webinars that we have set, that you're already signed up for, are we'll go over in detail more about how to complete the forms. We will additionally be updating our self-directed services training series to account for the updates to the forms, and all of that will be available after October 6th.
Thank you, Christy. Can you talk about the forms? Is it one person that's doing all the forms? Can you talk about, team processes and how teams should be coming together to support and provide input on forms, etc.?
Absolutely. So all of the forms that are used within the DDA, but especially in self-directed services, are facilitated by the coordinator of community service. However, they're led by the participant and their team. So the participant who self-directs their services is in charge, and they choose people to walk alongside them, sometimes designating a representative who supports them to help make decisions. But that person is at the center of that team, and that team, based on what the participant desires, supports in completing the forms. But the forms are facilitated by the coordinator of community services to ensure that they're uploaded accordingly to LTSS Maryland and have the quality that we need from our services.
Thank you, Christy. We're getting a couple questions about the substitute judgment form. So that form, we are going to be getting additional stakeholder input on the form and process. That form and the reporting form will not be required until April. So we are first going to get additional input from stakeholders before we move forward with that and sharing information. A couple people are sharing person-specific examples about who they are, their roles, and associations. Please reach out to us directly and we can help walk through your unique situation because everybody has different associations, whether you're a legally responsible person, a power of attorney, etc. So we really want to make sure that we could carefully think through all that information related to that. Just trying to see more form specific. Dr. Smalls, why don't we go ahead and take the hand that's raised and see if that's a question related to the self-directed services forms.
Sure. Our question comes from Irene Suada. Irene, are you able to unmute?
Yeah. Oh,
Hi,
can you
Irene.
hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello, guys. I'm here talking away. So this is Irene Suave. Good afternoon. So in May 2025, the Language Access Bill was passed in Maryland to increase access for information and in general for people with developmental or for all disabilities. So that also includes just ease of access. And I'm concerned that a lot of the forms, the webinars and everything is being dispersed without, the translation or interpretation services in place. Once again, our folks are going to be the last to know what's happening. And so what is the plan, I guess, from DDA to ensure that all of this information is being shared equitably? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Irene. Yeah, absolutely. We are actively working internally with our other partners and the department in general in terms of support with translation. So be on the lookout for more information coming out, but we are actively looking at that. Okay, we have Anne, I think that raised her hand. Anne, do you have questions related to self-directed services forms?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Anne, for joining us. Do you have a question about self-directed services forms?
Yes, I do. I see that you said that we don't know what you're going to obviously do more, soliciting feedback and everything and what these forms are going to be regarding, say, if you're a guardian, etc. But my question is, if there are new requirements to update forms and they're going to be due in April and you're in the middle of a PCP year, your plan year, what will happen? Will that be that glide process again, or will you have to do those forms by that April date? That's what my question is.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's something we should consider as we look at the process. We're looking for a reporting form that would be used for both models to let us know the different type of people that are providing paid services. That's particularly important under the self-directed service model because as per the Self-Directed Service Act, if you are a legally responsible person, legal guardian, or relative, a independent support broker is required. So we want to make sure we're supporting that. So we hope to have some information that we could be sharing probably in the next couple months that we could share so that people would have time to be able to complete the reporting form for that April date. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Smalls, let's go to the next section and we'll have Christelle share some information about some of the new rules to include that.
Thank you, Rhonda, and good afternoon again. I am now going to present an overview of some new rules starting October 6th, 2025. Next slide, please. Regarding relatives, legally responsible persons, and legal guardians, they cannot work and get paid to provide more than 40 hours of support per week. Please note, if currently approved to work more than 40 hours, you may continue until the end of the family of staff overtime request form approval. The new definition for relatives includes natural or adoptive parents, step-parents, grandparents, step-grandparents, children, stepchildren, siblings, step-siblings, aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews. Next slide, please. Substitute judgment, effective October 6th, 2025, legally responsible persons, legal guardians, and certain relatives must use the substitute judgment. Substitute judgment means someone makes decisions based on what you would want, not what they would want for you. Next slide, please. And we're now going to open it up to questions related to the new rules we just discussed. Back to you, Rhonda.
Thank you, Christelle. Really appreciate that. So a couple questions, or a question that came in related to substitute judgment. First of all, we want to state that we continue and will always support individuals making their own decisions. There are some individuals that we support that have other individuals making decisions on their behalf. This could be related to waiver services or providers of services. And so as per the federal government's requirements under the Medicaid waiver programs, there must be safeguards put into our program to ensure that substitute judgment is used when legally responsible persons, legal guardians, and relatives are helping or making decisions on behalf of the participant related to those waiver services or providers. Participants who make their own independent decisions will continue to be supported in doing that. So there is no requirements, restrictions related to that. We want to always support participants. We want to walk beside them and support them so that they can do things independently, including making their own decisions. So as we move forward, and we will, as we shared, we're getting additional stakeholder feedback related to the substitute judgment process and the reporting form. We will be sharing in the future more information related to that. We had a question about the definition of relatives, specifically aunts and uncles. Do the spouses of the aunts and uncles also fall in the definition of a relative? It's a great question. I think if you're an aunt or uncle, we would consider that, even if you were the spouse of those. In terms of the 40-hour per family member or combined 40 hours total for all family members, it's a great question. So it's 40 hours per family member. It's not combined among the various family members. So currently in the waiver, there is a limit for legally responsible people, relatives, and legal guardians to provide no more than 40 hours of service per week. That would be across all services that that one person provides. So if the brother is providing services and the sister is providing services, they can each provide up to 40 hours per service. 40 hours across all services per week. As we noted today, if you're currently approved through the self-directed services family and staff overtime request form for more than 40 hours, that authorization approval, we will honor that through the end of that approval timeframe, and then the 40-hour limit would come into play. New people coming into services on October 6th that are looking for legally responsible persons, legal guardians, and relatives to provide supports, to provide paid supports, could be authorized to provide up to the 40 hours of supports per week for all the services that they're providing. Okay, I think those were those questions. Dr. Smalls, let's go to the person who has raised their hand.
Okay. We have a question from Ann McKee.
Hi, it's Anne again. I just have a question regarding will the forms designate between the different types of whether you're guardian or responsible person, etc., power of attorney, on the forms that you're requiring? Because in Maryland, to be a legal guardian, you have to do substitute judgment training as part of the process to be a guardian, and that's that's in the documentation and the training. So I'm wondering, will that be an exemption from requiring it, or will it just be noted on the form that you already received training in that you're already actively doing that in your role as guardian?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really great question. So yes, that's exactly what we're thinking. with the input that we've received so far from some really great advocates and stakeholders, that legal guardians, as you noted, are required by Maryland law to complete training that is specific to substitute judgment. Our thinking is that yes, we would have people that are in those categories, legally responsible persons, legal guardians, and relatives that are being paid with Medicaid waiver dollars to provide services. They would be indicated on a form and what their association is. And if they're a legal guardian, then we know that if they have that documentation that they do have guardianship, we know that they already had to complete that training. And so that would be met. For the other individuals who are making decisions on behalf of persons, then we need to look at what the process would be for them, and exploring possibly other training or opportunities to help to support substitute judgment being provided. So thank you for sharing that with us, and we'll continue to think that through.
Thank you.
Dr. Smalls, you want to go to the next question, the next hand raised?
Yes. Yes, our next question comes from Mary Beth Jancic.
Thank you for taking my question. I actually have two.
Can you just share, let's just share one question, please, and then time when we circle back to the other people, we will gladly support your other question. Can you share one question about the new rules?
Yes. When and where will support brokers be given the new requirements and the code of conduct to be signed?
Happy to answer that question. I don't think it's in this section, but please join us on Friday. We're going to have additional information related to self-directed services. We have a 2.5-hour webinar specifically for self-directed services, and we can share additional details related to where we're at in terms of those questions. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, Dr. Smalls, why don't we go ahead and go to the next slides. And we can kind of finish out our slides, and then we'll circle back and open it up to questions we received at the beginning, and also some additional questions. And before we get into the resources, we did get a question about what happens if overtime is needed after the family member has worked 40 hours in a week. So I just want to remind you and remind everyone the critical importance of having both a backup plan and emergency plan. Backup plans are developed so that in the event that a staff doesn't show up or there's an additional need, that they could be executed, right? That they could be implemented to support those needs. Emergency plans are also really essential so that we're all prepared for emergency preparedness. Debbie, would you like to share anything additional about backup plans or emergency plans?
Yes, in the sense of we are looking at providing additional guidance and information to the CCSs to help them do exactly what you mentioned. Have a plan should the staff not show up, should the person have a change in their waiver status or anything else. So we will be developing additional guidance, and your CCSs will share it with you.
Thank you so much, Debbie. All right, Dr. Smalls, let's go to the next slide, please. So a couple of things we want to share in terms of resources that are coming to you that we hope will be helpful. First, the information we shared today was in plain language summary about important information. For additional details, we will encourage you to visit our website that includes not only our waiver application and the proposal, but laws, regulation, guidance, and policies. Next slide, please. To further support you and all stakeholders, we have developed a guide. It's going to be referred to as the Guide to October 2025 Waiver Changes in You. And what we have done is we have taken the changes and information that are in the that's in the amendment proposal and put them into a guide to support individuals, families, coordinators, and providers, and others who are interested, so that you do not have to go through the large federal waiver document. So we hope to send this out at the end of the week. We were waiting for the webinar to occur to see some of the questions we're receiving, to see if we wanted or need to enhance some of the information. So we will be reviewing your questions that you had submitted today to see if we can enhance the information. But the guide to October 2025 waiver changes in you, we will be sending out at the end of the week. Next slide, please. In the guide, we have included a chart that includes examples of items that could help at the home. So we know at times it can be confusing to know whether a need would fall under assistive technology or environmental modifications. So we have developed a chart to kind of share some examples of assistive technology and environmental modifications, which are included in our new guide to waiver changes in you that we'll be sharing at the end of the week. Next slide, please. In addition to the guide, we have also created an easy to understand guide to October 2025 waiver changes in you. As you may know, the DDA currently has a guide to services on our website and also has a version referred to as the easy to use guide to services. We wanted to also provide information in a more short, condensed, plain language, easy to use guide for participants and families. So at the end of the week, we look to issue both our larger guide to waiver changes in you, in addition to an easy to understand guide for waiver changes in you. Next slide, please. As we're moving closer to our October 6th implementation date, we have shared information about various webinar series related to the waiver amendment. We have put out communications a few times, and we wanted to again share today. These are our upcoming webinars. So on Friday, September 19th, from 9 to 11:30, we will be sharing information, including self-directed services updates and recent updates for the self-directed services manual, and reviewing some of the information we shared today in a little bit more detail. Also on Friday, September 19th, we will be providing a webinar that's more targeted for providers. We will be talking about provider opportunities, so new opportunities to provide services, and some new requirements. This webinar will occur from 2 to 3:30, and we'll share information related to virtual supports, new provider qualifications, quarterly training attestations, license and certification renewal timelines, and individuals providing Medicaid enrollment for behavior support services and nursing support services. During the new and updated forms webinar, we will share additional information and demonstrate how to complete the new and updated forms and guidance. In addition, we'll provide updates to where we are with the status of updating our guide to services and other documents and forms that we had shared in that section. During the LTSS Maryland update webinar, which will be geared more towards providers and coordinators of community services, we will share information related to the system enhancements that align with the waiver amendment and new forms and tools within the information electronic record that the coordinators of community services and DDA providers use. This slide includes the link to register. If you've joined us today, that means you've already registered. And when you register initially for any of the webinar series, you are automatically enrolled for all of them. So no further action would be needed. We encourage you to share the information about the webinar series with others and ask them to join us too. And we will be posting all our webinars and the PowerPoints on the DDA YouTube channel that's specific to the waiver amendment, in addition to our new DDA dedicated waiver changes in you website. Next slide, please. So who to contact if you have questions? Please reach out to your coordinators of community services, or you can reach out to the DDA regional office. Specifically and importantly, if you have individual unique situations or person-specific questions about you or your family member, those questions are better asked with your coordinator of community services in the regional office so that we can gather additional information and be able to share and advise you appropriately. Next slide, please. So for some updates and more details, again, visit our new dedicated October 2025 waiver changes in you webpage. When you go to the DDA website, if you go to the left side of it, the left navigation panel, we created a new link that's directly under our quick links, and a visual of that is shown on this slide. In addition, we want to always encourage you to sign up for our email updates. There's a link on this slide that you can sign up. And as we share information about webinars or new communication, we have our DDA newsletter, etc. You will be added to that list so that you automatically get our emails and updates at that time. Next slide, please. So now we're going to go into more public comments and questions that we can answer. We would ask that you ask just one question so that we have the opportunity to support more individuals in terms of their questions. So really appreciate you supporting that so we can be fair to everyone. A couple of the questions that I see that we have. Looks to about the links to the webinars. Again, if you are registered for today's webinar, you will get an email letting you know the link for the upcoming webinars. So please be on the lookout to that. If you do not receive it, you can reach out to us related to that. Okay, so I'll take a couple of the recent questions. We'll go to some hands, and then we're going to go back to the beginning of our webinar and get some of those questions so that we can try to answer as many questions as we can related to this. One question relates to coordinators of community services, wondering what steps coordinators of community services can take related to caregivers who are reluctant to provide information about the person, especially when the information is needed to complete the client assessment. Debbie, can you share some more advice related to situations where the coordinator is trying to get information and the caregiver may not be forthcoming with information? And if you're speaking, Debbie, you may be on mute.
Sorry, it was buffering. I was waiting for it to stop spinning on me. We are updating the rights and responsibilities for all members of the team, the participant, family members, CCS, providers, regarding their roles and their responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities is providing the necessary information to both support the person-centered plan as well as the waiver application and redetermination. So we will, the CCSs will be able to utilize that updated roles and responsibilities to further explain to anyone, whether it's participant, family member, what the expectation is regarding, submission of information, et cetera.
Thank you, Debbie. So going to some of our initial questions we received at the beginning, our first question was whether if someone only needs assistive technology and doesn't want staffing hours, is it possible just to receive that service? So absolutely, we encourage and support assistive technology. As an assistive technology first state, we want all individuals to consider that. Assistive technology continues to evolve all the time, and there are opportunities to use technology instead of staffing hours, which provides more independence for individuals. Today, we heard a question related to seizure watches and whether that would be covered. So technology remote supports, and other opportunities are available to support individuals to be independent without what some may consider more restrictive services like one-to-one or two-to-one dedicated supports. So we highly encourage you to explore assistive technology. And within our assistive technology service, there is the opportunity, as we shared today, for an occupational therapist to do an assessment related to technology that could help further support the participants' independence and needs in various areas of their life. So please, yes, look at assistive technology as another opportunity to support individuals and their independence. Dr. Smalls, let's take a question from a raised hand, and then I'll look for another question from the beginning.
Okay. Okay.
Hi.
Our first one is from Bernadette Curtis Lambert.
Hi, Bernadette.
I tried. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bernadette, can you share one question with us, please?
Sure.
Or a comment if you prefer?
The last webinar that you had, I was in my car and tried to download the webinar. I've looked for it on the YouTube channel and I can't find it. How can I get a copy of it?
What a great question. Thank you for sharing that. So Dr. Smalls, can you talk a little bit about the DDA YouTube channel, and then I'll talk about the website.
Sure. So all of the webinars under this series are going to be on our DDA YouTube channel under a playlist called the 2025 Medicaid Waiver Amendment. And I think it says playlist after it. But all of the webinars after they've been recorded and uploaded will be found there, and they'll also be posted on our DDA website. So it will be linked in our DDA connection that's coming out on Friday, but you will see all of these videos on our DDA YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, is the newsletter, if it comes out Friday, the webinars we do on Friday may not be downloaded. We have to download them. They have to be processed, to pull all that information, the recording down, and then post it to the website. So we will continue to share communication, including the links to the webinars that Dr. Small was just mentioning, and we'll also add them to the waiver changes in you webpage, so you can easily go to that page too to click on them. So thank you so much for that question. One of the questions in the question thread was, does the waiting list include transitional youth? The answer is yes. The DDA waiting list would include transitional youth. When their eligibility year comes up, those individuals are then provided the opportunity to apply for a DDA operated waiver program. And what that means is we will reach out to the coordinator of community services that is providing that case management support while the person is waiting for their eligibility, so that they can help them with the DDA waiver application packet and process at that time. Dr. Smalls, let's go to the next question. Next hand, and I'll go to the next question.
All right. Our next person is Dominique Clark.
Hello, hi. So my question is for residential services. I noticed the speaker had mentioned dedicated hours will only be authorized for behavioral needs. But then Rhonda, when you were talking afterwards, it seemed like it could be for both behavioral and medical. And I have seen and noticed that DDA is, pretty much only approving it for behavioral. So I want to just understand what is happening as of 10-6, and also what the rationale is and how DDA is thinking about that difference.
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple things, and I'm sorry that I don't appear to be communicating this really well. So, I'm going to try to do it again. So if Rhonda has been enrolled in the waiver program for 3 years, and Rhonda is currently authorized dedicated supports, Rhonda has supporting documentation to document Rhonda's assessed need for 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. That could be documented in Rhonda's behavior support plan, Rhonda's nursing care plan, and documented in other tools like the health risk screening tool, et cetera. But as per the waiver right now, we would need to have information and an assessment, that assessed need documented in those areas. So we have to verify there's an assessed need for Rhonda. I've been receiving it for 3 years. I continue to have that need. My plans are submitted with my request, my annual plan. If the regional office reviews that, finds the evidence and determines I have that assessed need, that service continues to get authorized, and I continue to receive those supports. If the regional office determines that I have not provided evidence for my dedicated supports I'm requesting, they may deny that request. They may first ask for additional information, but they may eventually deny that. And then I will be given appeal rights, for which then I can appeal that decision. That is different than Rhonda, who is, or let's take Nova, who is a transitioning youth, or Nova, who is exiting the foster care system and is new to DDA services. So she doesn't have a nursing care plan or behavior support plan because she hasn't been in DDA services at all, right? So if Nova has a behavioral support need, we will be able to authorize for Nova up to 6 months of dedicated supports while that behavior support plan is being created. Now, if Nova has health and safety needs, we cannot authorize dedicated supports for 6 months and wait for a nursing care plan to be developed. The reason is the Maryland Board of Nursing does not support, it would be not legal for us to support or do delegation, or I'm sorry, it would not be appropriate or legal for direct support professionals to complete delegated tasks without having a nursing care plan and nursing oversight. So for people that are new to services, who don't have those dedicated services yet, they have not been authorized, and we don't have a behavior support plan or nursing care plan that has the assessed need for us to authorize dedicated supports ongoing. If it's health and safety, the only option that we have available to us is to authorize emergency nursing support services so that the nurse can go in and review the assessed need, and as appropriate, create a nursing care plan and share evidence related to the assessed need so that then we could authorize dedicated supports. So that's the difference. If you're new to services, or we don't currently have a behavior support plan, or you don't have documentation to support your need, we can only authorize up to 6 months of dedicated hours while a behavior support plan is being developed. If you have a health and safety need, we are not able to authorize dedicated supports because the direct support professional cannot perform those tasks, which would require the delegation of a nurse and training and oversight. Did that help answer your question or clarify a little bit better? Hopefully that did. Dr. Smalls, let's go to the next question.
All right, our next person is Paulette Roseberry.
Hello. This question is related to individual family goods and services. And it's related to the, what if a community college provides a special program to help build skills toward community involvement, social skills and work skills, et cetera? Are those costs able to be covered under individual family goods and services? And so, and also the TERPS program in Maryland would also be a part of that question. But, you know, if a community college is doing that and they're not doing as part of their enrollment curriculum classes toward a degree or something like that, can you go to a community college and take a program, a special program to help build your skills?
That's a great question, Paulette, and happy to connect with you to further kind of talk about it to make sure I'm on the same page. But with the individual and family directed goods and services, the amendment update related to this topic would not support using goods and services funds for those type of activities at a college. Individuals can absolutely explore and attend those just as you and I could, and would want to look at their own resources or other funding streams. but that would no longer be covered under goods and services. So thank you so much for sharing that question. So I know we're at 2:30. I wanted to share a couple things. First, thank you so much for joining us today. We understand that this is a lot of information, and we are trying to share it with you in a timely manner prior to the October 6th implementation date. We are happy to follow up on any questions if you want to reach out to us directly, and encourage you to join us for our additional webinars that are coming up. So on Friday, one specific for self-directed services updates. In the afternoon, one related to provider opportunities and requirements. And then in October 1st, we will be reviewing new and updated forms and hope to have additional information related to any additional guidance that's updated, like the guide to services. And then on the 2nd, we will share LTSS Maryland updates. So thank you so much. Additional information will be coming out in our newsletter and other communication streams. So thank you for joining us today. We wish you all well and look forward to talking to you at the next one.